Well, these are interesting times, and it revolves around the idea of cancel culture. Dino Sossi is from the University of Toronto, instructional assistant in technology and media, joins us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Dino.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
I am not so bad. I understand you have some background here in Waterloo region.
Yeah, my mom lived there for a long time. My sister, I used to patronize. There was an old yucks at the Holiday Inn I go to.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Do we have a definition these days of cancel culture, Dino? Because that seems like a great place to start.
If you want to sort of go to the roots of what it is, it's basically different people, mainly online, trying to find something that they find personally offensive, something that might oppress them, something that just irks them, and then collectively creating some kind of movement to have a person sort of cease to exist online, potentially like a brand or something else.
Is it a good thing? Are we calling people to account with it?
Yeah, it can be a good thing in terms of, we live in such a diverse, multicultural wonderland like Canada. Sometimes people who are completely powerless do not have a voice, and what better way to do it than create some attention online through social media?
It's not necessarily new, is it?
No, that's a great starting point too for this conversation. The pop culturally, the movement started in the early '80s. The great legendary guitarist Nile Rodgers from Chic did a song called "Your Love Is Cancelled." Fast forward about a decade, in New Jack City, which some of your listeners might know, Wesley Snipes' character Nino Brown uses cancel in kind of a charged way. And then you fast forward to like about the last 5 years, it's become really, really big. I think you've had these global social justice movements like Arab Spring, Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, Me Too, and many, many others. And then I think in the last year or two, you know how everyone, I'm sure you've had a number of callers over the course of the last year especially, you have people homebound due to the pandemic, feeling a lot really frustrated, and what better way to express that than using social media?
So does it curtail free speech then? Or I guess I should say free expression is maybe a better way to put that.
I think you can make an argument both ways. Like, I think if you're on the right side of it, like if you're on the side that is doing the canceling, I think it can really amplify whatever point you're making, which is really good, especially if there's a really widely agreed upon social injustice. Unfortunately, I think for the other side, if you're being canceled, it's just a deluge of just negativity that, sometimes I'm sure some of the people that are being canceled, if they're honest about it, they probably have done something in their past that might not have been the best way to express themselves. They might have done something poorly. And maybe that's just the way things are these days. You have a bit of a Twitter mob coming after you for something you've done in the past. Is it fair or not? The people are the judge, ultimately.
It seems to have no expiry date in some cases.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem. That's a great point. People like Louis C.K. Like I'm sure again a lot of your listeners, like we talked about stand-up comedy earlier on. If you love stand-up comedy, Louis C.K. is like just top shelf. And someone like him, his cancellation started around 2017 after some bad news about what he was doing behind closed doors sexually surfaced. And then after that, it's been just he lost a movie deal, his tours are canceled, and just recently he's been kind of coming back up to the surface the last year or two. But it's been a long 4 years for him.
But yet we have a prime minister who dressed in blackface more than once, and that would seem to be a culture cancel event for a lot of people. Didn't happen for him. Why does it get applied so unevenly?
I think it's like it's really interesting about, like, say for someone like Louis C.K. I think for part of his act, he does these things where, and this is speaking more to him coming back, I think he comes across as a bit rough-hewn and like he seems like he's kind of naughty when he does his stand-up. I think in some ways when he does a transgression and it's kind of called up through cancel culture, it actually kind of accentuates his character and it kind of fits in. I think for other people, you might get lucky where it's not the key issue at the right time, and you might have something that's widely agreed might be a really bad error, and for some reason it doesn't pick up traction, and it's really a case-by-case basis as to why something really explodes and why something just sort of peters out.
So again, we've had discussions over the past year, and you know this, about the names of streets and statues that could get pulled down as well. Is that cancel culture as well?
You can make a good argument for that. Like basically, it's a street name, a statue is an entity that's being forcibly taken away. And then for myself, I think I'm an educator. I completely understand some people's sort of long-seated anxiety or upset, but I wonder for the long-term benefit of the country when you have this really negative feel, and so, something like a statue, say if it's like for John A. MacDonald. You could question some of the decisions he made in the past, but also he's the founder of the country, and I really hope we can develop a way where we can have really full-throated, exhaustive conversations about really important issues. And someone like Sir John A., he's the Prime Minister. That will never change. How can we talk about his good points and then some of the unfortunate parts of his legacy?
And to your mind, is there a point where this becomes really quite dangerous?
I think when you when you bring up the issue of these statues being pulled down, I think when it's interesting where like Black Lives Matter started as a hashtag, so it resided purely online, and then it made its movement to offline. I think when it's online, I think it becomes more of just like a psychic cost to the person who's being canceled. I worry when these things take to the streets, and then sometimes you get people that are passionate for really legitimate reasons. But then when you get a lot of people who are passionate together in a confined space, and it's not, say it's post-pandemic, people aren't feeling great, they may have lost their jobs, a number of issues all come to a head. It could get dangerous, and that's where I worry about this phenomenon growing past this point.
Does it unfairly target places along the political spectrum?
It seems like politics is a really convenient area because I think it's actually politics is a really great way for social media to sort of show its more negative parts, unfortunately, because you have really, like you were just talking about in an earlier segment about vaccinations on campus and opening up different university classrooms and colleges and even K-12 environments. Mm-hmm. Those are really difficult and complicated issues, and in politics, people love a good soundbite. In social media, people love a good soundbite, and it's like these issues are so complex in a multicultural, diverse, democratic society. It's like even our best minds working with the best of intentions have a hard time dealing with them, and I can't making them sort of shortened by cancel culture and having short sayings, pithy sayings. It kind of, I think it takes away from that complexity, and ultimately is bad for society, I think.
This is, as you say in your piece, guilt in the court of public opinion, and there is no way to fight that, is there?
I think formally there really isn't. I would suggest if anyone was ever canceled, I was trying to think about this because it's such a thorny problem. As you know, there's so many nodes in the internet, and you can get attacked from all sides. I think if it was me and I was being directly targeted by someone, I think I'd direct message them back and sort of maybe explain myself. I think other than that, unless it violates some kind of law, it's really just people saying really nasty negative things online to an unfortunate person, depending on the circumstance. Like maybe they deserved it, maybe they didn't.
Well, and I keep thinking, Dino, and this is somewhat bizarre, but that's not unusual for this program, that, 100 years ago, this same thing was done just by gossip.
Yeah.
Now it's done by social media.
Yeah, it's really no different than that. I took this class, and I remember it was in 2008. It was my first graduate school experience. And I was talking about the internet in a class saying it's this pristine space where we can project the best part of humanity. And I could say that in 2008 with a straight face. No irony, just straight up. And then now I think over time, this pristine space has been sort of, we take our best and worst parts of our humanity and project them on these online spaces. And there's some fantastic, wonderful things about information sharing, inspirational content. And then there's some really negative parts. And it is like you say, it's like the gossip sphere that we have in human beings just kind of transmuted into the online sphere.
There's no stuff in this back in the bottle, is there?
Yeah, I really, you can't legislate good behavior.
No, we've learned that. Dino, thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot, Brian. I really appreciate it.
And Dino Sossi, Instructional Assistant of Technology and Media at the University of Toronto. Can we cancel culture? Probably not.